There's a question from YouTube. Can you talk about the ongoing hostility of many institutions and orgs to Medicare for All, U.S. unions, Planned Parenthood, or U.S. unions, for example? Also, groups like Planned Parenthood and Consumer Results reports seem to feign neutrality, but it's not hard to take their silence as opposition.
I think, yeah. So I think it's important to begin by recognizing that the public in the United States is really with us on this, and that poll after poll has shown that the majority of people in the United States want a public health care system. That even what we're seeing, interestingly, is more people who identify as Republican and conservative coming on board and supporting this. And I found that in my own conversations with folks over the years when I was out, and there were, counter protesters. And so there is that. But of course, for the major labor unions, a lot of them have their own health plans. And so it's an economic issue for them, where they are, they have all these people that are running those plans that are making pretty good money from those plans, and they don't want to lose, those jobs and that income. So I think that could be kind of some of their opposition, as well as the fact that, not all labor unions are progressive. It's a very mixed group of people in the United States. I think that in terms of like some of the nonprofit organizations, there's a real tie to the Democratic Party, which is something that I saw, and so a lack of willingness to come out and go against, an administration that's hostile to this right now, and a Congress that's, does a little bit of lip service, but is really doing nothing to advance this issue, despite economic crisis and healthcare crisis in this country. So there is going to be that opposition. But again, we have to remember is that if we organize and create that visible wave of support and make that demand, these groups are going to come on board because they're going to have to. They're going to look bad if they don't. So I wouldn't worry about that so much at this point.
Yeah, we had our Pride here yesterday. We do a festival instead of a parade, and we do it in May because we're close enough to Chicago that if we tried to conflict on the traditional Pride weekend, no one would be here. Mm-hmm. The organizations, the table wouldn't be here. The people would drive to be with 1 million people in Chicago instead of a few thousand here. But in 2016, we had a table and we're petitioning, and we were next to Planned Parenthood. And we were setting up, and I, put all of our stuff out, and the Planned Parenthood volunteers started asking me where we stood on abortion. And I told them, well, we're for full access, no questions asked, fully funded under a national, under Medicare for All. And I mean, their jaws dropped as volunteers, and they're like, there's a political party, that supports this. Mm-hmm. And they all signed it. I got 750 signatures, 700-ish signatures in one day.
Wow.
Because they had a little game where you spun and you got, a free prize. And there's just a line there of people who support Planned Parenthood. And I'm walking the line. Just, do you support abortion covered under Medicare for All? No questions asked, fully funded. Yes. Signature.
Wow.
So it's like Democrats, right? The people support it. The organizations might not, but the people do.
Right.
And, one thing with Planned Parenthood that I was talking with somebody about was during 2020 when we put forward that plan, was them trying to wrap their head around our plan that Planned Parenthood wouldn't exist anymore. Mm. And they had this real trouble of like, how I want it to always exist. It's like, but it won't need to fill this role because it will be filled within the medical service or in the medical system.
Yeah, but at the same time, you could see
the same exact
keeping those facilities, because you still need maternal and pregnancy care and people that are going to want to terminate pregnancies. I mean that.
Yeah, it was someone.
Why couldn't they come into
they
the system?
Volunteered for years, and they just had this attachment to the organization.
Mm-hmm,
And the thing with unions that always shocks me is, in union negotiations, healthcare is like the number one thing they're debating.
Right.
Like taking that off the table means they get to talk about cost of living, they get to talk about raises, they get to talk about
worker safety. Conditions. Exactly.
Like that, all the, not to say healthcare is not important, but all these really important actual workplace, things that unions need to be advocating on.
Plus striking. What's the biggest thing that the employers do when workers go on strike? They pull their healthcare.
Yep.
Right. So, yeah. that it takes away that leverage.
So I know you've got to go real quick, but Matthew Ho wanted to know, are there any resources you can recommend, authors, websites, so that people can consult data, information, and advocacy for universal health care?
So Physicians for National Health Program, and disclaimer, I'm an advisor to the board. PNHP.org is actually a really excellent resource. They have, they're posting new articles all the time on what's going on, as well as they have just basic resources about what this is and studies that people can cite. For a while, and I just haven't been able to keep it up the way I want to lately, the Health Over Profit for Everyone campaign, healthoverprofit.org, but we created activism tools as well as education tools there, so people can still access that website and get those handouts and basic information there. But I think what's kind of disappointing in terms of like where the movement is right now is that there are kind of these long-term groups that are not willing to push the Democratic Party, and then we have this new energy that's coming in. March for Medicare for All is one of them, and they're really trying to push for this in a way that's, what needs to be done. I think, it's like we're not. Some people unfortunately have a strategy like, if we're not going to get Medicare for All until we elect enough progressive Democrats, and what the reality is we're not going to get Medicare for All until we form a national movement that makes that demand. So
it's mine.
Yeah.
July 30th is the next March for Medicare for All.
It's Medicare's birthday. Yep. And that's going to be nationwide. And there's actually on Popular Resistance, I have information about that. Sweetheart, unfortunately, this is the wrong one, but I'll plug it in just a minute. Okay, I'm almost done. Sorry. I was letting the kids use their tablets while I was doing
No, you're good. As a parent and a former preschool teacher, you're good.
And he already took his bath and got ready for bed because, I don't know, it's hot. He wanted his bath early.
Well, I'm planning to try to organize local on July 30th with that.
Great.
I know the Illinois Green Party was one of the key organizers in Chicago as well, and that, like you've said, with pushing the Democratic Party, that's what that movement, that budding movement is running into.
Yeah.
Right. That Chicago movement, that Chicago event at their last national, day of action, had really no official Democratic support, and almost no kind of front group not-for-profit support from the people who support this. But Biden said he wasn't going to pass it, and they were still in anyone but Trump mode, and anyone but Trump's still very alive, even though he's not in office.
Right. Don't let your young child unplug your cord.